everyone. Welcome back to Notier's Frontiers Diaries. Today we go to Overland Expo West,
dun, dun, dun.
Which is the biggest and grandest of all the Overland Expos.
The flagship expo.
The original one that you went to get inspired for our own personal journey.
Yeah.
That was 4 years ago, right before we started on our trip. We'd still been dreaming of going on this big round the world motorcycle trip, but you were able to get some time off of work before we ended up quitting our jobs, and you went out there to the expo, and that was some real inspiration.
It was a blessing and I won't say curse, but it was a blessing and a financial burden. Because the ticket price was not expensive at all, but the knowledge that I left with, I mean, you can walk out of there with a $2 million earth roamer, but
yes, you could.
I realized that some of our camping gear was just not going to cut the bill. We like to do everything on a budget because the less we spend now, the more we can be on the road.
Exactly.
But there is a happy medium on this scale, and somewhere right in the middle is what we were trying to aim for now. But when I got back from this event 4 years ago,
we were really on the cheap end, and that was not good. And you realized that, thankfully, before we embarked on our big trip.
This is true.
Because we had really bad camping equipment. It was not the smartest.
Yeah.
We had a huge queen-size blow-up mattress that we were using, and of course I was freezing. Tent. Yeah, and it just, I was cold every night.
I woke up at the first night of the expo years ago, and I just walked around to everybody and I said, who here wasn't cold? Because I want to investigate what what equipment you use.
Because also you were under the impression, like, I'm going to Arizona.
Arizona is just a wide, vast desert in my mind.
Right, it's going to be a zillion degrees. The sun is shining all the time out there. It's going to be really, really hot. But Flagstaff is really high altitude. It's almost 8,000 feet high, I think. So that definitely cools it down a lot. And some years it snows at the expo. That's how cold it can get. And
this year, the expo was even pushed further back into the year because they finally opened up a lot of large public events, and it was, very exciting, but it was all pushed towards the end of the year.
And by end of the year, you mean like in the middle of the summer?
Yes.
Which was perfect.
This is true.
Weather-wise.
Correct myself.
Yes. Yeah, and so you had been there before. We'd also been there the year before, and together and as presenters, which was super awesome.
Yeah.
But this year, it was really a homecoming for us. It was kind of like the origin of a lot of the inspiration for us in our journey, and
it was cool to be
fantastic.
Yeah, it was cool to be on the other side of the table,
So anything that is crushable, let it be computers or camera and stuff, I want in this center. So we do.
It's just both sides, and we did plenty of walking around, getting inspired by others as well. But the Overland Expo is just a good place with a lot of like-minded people who are out there on their own journeys, preparing to be on their own journeys. It's just a mecca for adventurers. And so
we get inspired, we get to inspire others. It was super great.
Yeah.
So we started off that morning in St. George in southern Utah, staying with our friends, and we left really early because we wanted to get to the expo in Flagstaff before the campground totally filled up. We wanted, and we knew it wasn't going to totally fill up because the grounds are huge, but we wanted to get our pick of where we were going to camp. So we wanted to be there a little early. We left right when the sun was rising, and it was beautiful because right there in southern Utah you have the Kolob Mountains, which are kind of reddish, and they're the mountains that surround Zion and that area. And we had that view just riding into it in the morning with the sun making everything look really red and golden. And then we very quickly got into Arizona, and southern Utah is very Arizona-esque, but I still feel like there's a change that happens. Once you get to Arizona, the desert really flattens out and the mesas pop up, you know, just out of nowhere in this very arid area. The greenery kind of fades away, and it really just encapsulates the essence of Arizona pretty quickly. You feel like, all right, yes, I am in Arizona now.
You're driving across the state flag. It's just a big sun, you know, it's just...
Yeah, it's very, like, it fits the bill perfectly. And you want to be on a motorcycle. You want to be, it can get hot, but you definitely want to feel like you're a cowboy out there because that's the scenery surrounding you. Those red rocks, those oranges, it is really beautiful. We got to the expo, we got checked in, we got a place to camp, and our dear friend Pete and his wife Lisa, who had helped us in Colorado, they were also there. And then they said, hey, you should camp next to someone who you're going to be really excited to meet. And they're like, here's Amanda.
Amanda Zitto as the magpie flies.
I've been really excited to meet you for some time now because we love your YouTube videos.
I'm so glad I got to meet you.
Amanda of Where the Magpie Flies.
As the magpie flies. Isn't that awesome? Aranda.
See, I told you this is why people call me the magpie lady, and that's okay.
Oh. All right, here we go.
There we go. Look, I have a passenger. All right, are you ready?
Yep. Here we go.
Drive like a jerk so she thinks I ride nice.
I'm going to go right into the hole.
Right into the hole. I love it. Yay! As the magpie flies, I mean, she's just an incredible YouTuber. She's an incredible motorcycle rider. She really brings the motorcycle community together. She's done some amazing things, and we were super excited to meet her. And we got to camp right next to her, and she ended up being kind of a staple throughout the weekend for us because we were just constantly doing things together and going to events together.
We got out and did the thing.
We got out and did the thing. That's her motto, yes. And we got to trade information about gear and stuff like that because she always has some really good insights to some of the best motorcycle gear, especially for cold weather. We've done a lot of being in warm countries for a very long time, and so this summer we're going to be going to Alaska. We wanted some good feedback of what was good for cold weather. She's from Montana, so you know it's perfect. Also in the expo, we saw Kingston and Jackson again, who
were the film crew that did a cool little documentary for us for the first Overland Expo. You have to check that out.
Yeah, you have to see
it. These videos we have
we'll link it below.
Are YouTube worthy, and we love them, and we hope you do too. But
yeah, it's only like 6 minutes. It's great.
It was like, oh my god, this was. I wish every video could be that quality. They're professionals.
Yes,
we're just mules. But we're good mules. We hope you enjoy this footage.
And you started having a couple problems with the motorcycle. I shouldn't say you, like we, but I don't know what the problems
the bike kept on having problems. And, you know, it's the Expo, just kind of wrap it up in a big bubble. Like, the Expo is fun and it's great, but we're very busy. We have to present at the 10th to present ourselves. We've almost sold out of all of our books, so thank each and every one of you who purchased a book. But then we're presenting, and I don't want to shine this in a negative light at all. I'm just saying that we were very busy. And then, as I'm riding the bike around back and forth, you know, it felt like first gear was slipping or something. And what it turned out to be was the chain had just gone from, you should change me soon, to, oh my god, you should have changed me a long time ago. And that's kind of like the indicator. There is not a lot of like warning. It's just, now your chain is basically trashed.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what my bike was doing to me, because it was so loose when I'd hit the accelerator or the throttle, the chain would have to like catch up to itself and it'd make this large kunk. But
did you know it at the time that that's exactly what was happening?
Well, it was
you knew there was something wrong with the chain.
Yeah, I actually ran into Kingston, and he, you know, he's smarter than I, like most of you out there, and so he got on my bike and rode up and down, and he said, I don't think it's your final drive, I think it's your chain. And so he's the one who kind of pointed it out, and then after further inspection, and just taking the tire and jamming it, you can hear the, and it wasn't the final drive.
More
Cha-chunk.
like 0.5 second delay of a final drive, like.
But anyway.
So thank you to Kingston.
Oh yeah, thank you for multiple reasons.
Yes.
But we're just constantly busy now. I have this kind of over my head looming, what are we going to do next, which is how I felt at the last Expo, and then in Idaho, and then, you know, and then it's just.
The other thing that was kind of looming over us was the fact that we knew that in 10 days, we were going to have to be in Virginia for the final Expo East.
Yeah.
That is not a lot to get across the United States.
Well, comfortably, right?
Comfortably. Like, you can.
Yeah.
Certainly.
But we like to enjoy ourselves and get there rested.
Especially with these bike problems that had been popping up throughout the summer. We just were concerned that we might not make it. Every single expo, we felt like we might not make it.
Every expo, I called I called the person in charge and said, "Hey, I don't know if we're gonna make it. I'm so sorry." You know, and then we'd get there and, "Oh, I'm so glad you made it," and we'd hug, and then we'd take off with smiles, and I'd call her.
So we were like, "Man, we've done 2 out of 3. This is great. We were able to get here to Arizona, but in 10 days we have to be in Virginia, and already the bike is having a couple
this one was a known just swap out a part issue, but nobody in the area had a chain and a sprocket, and so we knew we would have to be leaving on a battered bike, but you know, after we get out of first gear, it wasn't so bad. So after the expo, we said our goodbyes. We parted ways with Pete and Lisa. We parted ways with Amanda. And it's just, I highly suggest anybody out there going and getting out to the expos, just because they're such a blast to go to. We left early the next morning to just head east and see how far we could get.
main highway that runs from Flagstaff eastwards out of Arizona, there was a place that I said, I can't just go by it and not stop there. I have to go and see this place because I've always wanted to go, and that is the Petrified Forest. Surprised me about the Petrified Forest is I thought the highlight of it would be seeing the logs from the dinosaur ages that had been turned to stone and all the really beautiful stones that are encased in the logs now. But actually for me the highlight was the drive through.
It was the whole ride. It was this huge long stretch, and so the highway is here and you kind of pull off the highway and then you're kind of running parallel to it for a little bit. And then you actually cross the highway and you go off. You know, it wasn't like this far remote thing, but there was it had to have been 30 miles or something of this road.
Beautiful. And it went through an area called the Painted Desert.
And it was just night and day versus the highway versus road. And it was just like, who built the road and wasn't like, hey, let's build it 2 miles east, you know?
I don't get it.
The highway.
Who?
It doesn't matter. We'll cut that part out. But it was just a fantastic ride that was, you know, semi Bryce Canyon-esque in sections, and then riding at an altitude with an overlook of mesas. And
all the colors that were out there were so stunning. There were these mounds that were kind of greenish gray, and then they'd have these black stripes. And then there were red ones, and there were orange ones, and there were completely white ones as well. So I definitely understand where it got the name, the Painted Desert.
It was like a Bob Ross painting. It was just insanely beautiful.
And I didn't expect it to be so beautiful of a ride through it.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of a hike down into an area that had some of the logs that had fallen over. And it was very strange to think that millions and millions of years ago, this had been a jungle.
Yeah.
And it had been completely covered in dinosaurs, huge dinosaurs everywhere, and huge fern-like trees.
And that part was, you know, a 45-minute ride into the scenery.
Unbelievable.
It was really, really cool.
And to think that, well, not only were these once living things, but now they haven't just become like stone, they've become gorgeous gems.
Yeah,
they're
like
just
sparkly.
So pretty. There's like quartz in them, and yeah, they really are sometimes like crystals. It's like a magical thing, like a dinosaur
really
forest
cool.
turned to crystals.
Yeah.
Some enchantment by some evil witch.
Only
I don't know.
Only on Earth.
Only
like
on
that.
Earth.
Yeah.
It was the perfect little detour.
And we took a nice little hike down, and it was kind of strenuous because we're up on this bluff. By strenuous, by our standards, because we don't hike, because we don't like to hike that much. But you could reach out and touch them, and it was just, it was really, really cool. It was a feel-good day. It was a very beautiful ride with very beautiful, strange objects, and you know that's what we like to hunt down.
In our next video, we will be booking it across the United States. We come across hailstorms and more bike issues and saving graces and all sorts of crazy adventures. So I hope you stay tuned, and I hope you like this video. If you did, please give us a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below, and we will be seeing you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.